Side of Western New England also. Can you hear me? And I'll come down to it. This portion of our time together, we're going to have 3 women who visited Wales this summer. Give us a short presentation each. Give a short presentation with some slides or photos of their trip. So we're anticipating those 3, and then our main speaker, John Ballard, will come later. So hang tight, John. Our first presenter is Susan Davies, who went to Wales for 2 months. That was a nice time. 2 months in the country. In autumn, and she went with Susan years, and they had such an adventure. So Susan Sit is going to tell you about being surrounded by her ancestors. Please welcome Sue.
Just a minute, Sue.
Yep. The AV guy is setting this up. As I said, as Margaret said, Susan Mears and I went to Wales for 2 months. It was a dream of mine to go for a longer period of time where I could just be in Wales and not rush around and see lots of family and get lots of things done, but just to be in Wales and to settle there. And I think I achieved one of my goals, which was to feel like a local. And one of the places we stayed was Llangollen. And after a couple of weeks, we were there for 3 weeks. So after a couple of weeks, got to know people in the shops and the storekeepers and everybody. And lost my title, but that's okay. And coming out of the car one day, and a woman, a local resident, waved to me and said hello, and I felt so good that someone had recognized me, and I felt like I belonged, which was terrific. It was a really good feeling.
This is your slide, right?
The BBBB should be surrounded by my ancestors. So this is the second slide. Okay, so we stayed in 3 different areas of Wales. This was the first area we stayed in, northwest Anglesey. My family come from the northern third of Anglesey. If you cut across from north of Holyhead, across to the east coast, north of Bentlech. That's where most of my paternal family come from. They were labourers, they were seamen, captains, ship captains, sailing out of Anglech, wheelwrights, a cooper, a block maker that worked in the copper mines, a carter in a brewery in Anglech, a horseman, and more. So a variety of different occupations. So this is where I wanted to stay, and Susan happily came along, and I wanted to be there because all my father's family all came from this area. We stayed in a village called Korhonen, which was, thinking back, it was a little remote. They'd lost their little shop, they'd lost their pub, they'd lost their little post office, but we had a car, so we were fine. Korhonen is in the northwest corner, near the sea, very rural, lots of farming around, huge tractors and machinery on the little roads.
This is Menai Cottage where we stayed, and 2 doors up from here, you can just see it at the other end of the photograph there, was a place that on the door had Bryn Villa, which is villa on the hill. There was no hill, and I remember that this name rang a bell. And I went into my family tree and found out that my great uncle had lived in Rhydwen at Bryn Villa, and that was 2 doors down, which was amazing. He was Shadrach, and his sister was Rose, and they lived there in 1911. The church down the road, oops, this is the chapel down the road, Rhydwen Chapel, and this is where Shadrach was a deacon, and this is the cemetery where he was buried. The view on the right-hand side of the screen is my view from my bedroom window over the chapel. So every morning I would pull those curtains open and say, "Morning! Morning, everybody!" Because I had at least a half a dozen people buried there, and had visited it before, but this was very special. So a short drive away, down a country lane, past the only pub on the other end of the village, and up the side of a very steep hill was the farm Tyddyn Don. Not named after my husband, it means the homestead of the waves. And as you can see in the next picture that comes, a couple of pictures I'll show you, is right on the water's edge, up on the hill. And my 3rd great aunt moved here after marrying into the Williams family in 1835. And yes, it's still there. And this is where Jane moved from, about a 1/4 of a mile away. It's Ysgubor Hir, which means long barn. And it's in bad repair now, but I've had family there for about 6 or 7 generations, and they're still there today, but they're not in this part of the house. They've built a brand new bungalow next door. And the view from there, when you can see it, is the water between the mainland and Holyhead Island. It was amazing views. And here's the view from Tyddyn Don over to Holyhead, and on the left-hand side is looking over towards Ysgubor Hir. So a walk across the fields would get you there. And at the bottom of where you see the water on the right-hand side is Church Bay, where my family used to go all the time. And the Lobster Pot restaurant is there, and WSWNE Beach. And my 2 aunts who were born nearby used to walk to WSWNE Beach in the summer, and they would leave a little tent basically on the side of the road by the beach, and leave all their gear there for the whole summer. I couldn't do that now. No. Half a mile away, we passed this every day, we were driving around, is the Black Lion Inn, where my Tide and Nine, my grandfather and grandmother, ran this pub from about 1832 to 1846. After he got back from Liverpool from being at sea, they moved back to Anglesey, and this is in Llanfaethwy, in the same area. And next door to it is the Soar Baptist Chapel, which was built by my Tide's family in 1821. Near the Black Lion Inn, in the same village of Llanfaethwy, is St Maithly's Church. Family were married and buried here, and the photograph on the right, you can see Rhydwen, where we were staying. So again, it's across the fields to yet another church. This is this is the church of Rhyddlad, which was also in Rhydwen. It was a 1/4 mile drive from where we were staying, and family members were married here and are buried here. It was closed and fenced off, unfortunately. I think the steeple or the bell had fallen from the top, so they were figuring out what repairs needed to be done. 20 minutes drive away, up to the north of the island, was Amlwch, where many of my family were born and lived. In the 1800s, I had family members that worked at the copper mine here. The copper mine was active 4,000 years ago, in the Bronze Age, and also in the Roman times in 300–400 AD. In the 19th century, a new lode of copper ore was discovered on farmland, and the owner of the cottage and the land where it was found was given a bottle of whiskey and free rent for a lifetime for his cottage. But it opened up a huge industrial age for Amlwch. Ships were built, they built a harbour there, they built ships, and they shipped the ore down to South Wales where it was smelted. And the British Admiralty used the ore to sheathe the underneath of the ships, so that the barnacles and seaweed wouldn't attach to the wood of the ship. So the copper prevented that, made them faster in the water also. So this is beautiful Harris Mountain. The colours up there are amazing, just amazing. And then short distance away from the copper mine was Carrigagad, or Carrigath. My great-grandfather lived here, and also my grandfather when he was like a 4-year-old when his father was at sea. So for me, it was wonderful to be in an area with so many connections, and it's a really good idea when you go is to find that area where you can do a lot within a small area and see a lot and experience a lot in a small area. My last picture is about the stone walls of Wales, and I couldn't stop taking pictures of the stone walls. I just love them. They're all over Wales, as those of you who've been to Wales know. There's a sorry, I left my notes on the table. There's an author, Carwyn Graves, thank you, Carwyn Graves, who wrote a book called Here, about the landscape of Wales. And in that book he talks about the stone walls, and that they came up with this OSL, optically stimulated luminescence. And it's a dating technique where they go underneath the bottom of these hedgerows, because you can see the top one is getting overgrown with greenery. And when you drive in Wales, you'll see a hedgerow, but underneath that hedgerow, there's stones. It originated as a stone wall, which has been grown over. And they proved using this dating technique that the soil underneath these stones at the very bottom is over 3,000 years old. So these stone walls have been there for a long, long time. Snowdonia has the best preserved walls in Europe, and the most complex examples, and some are also 3,000 years old. Most in Snowdonia are not covered in growth, as they're on barren hillsides and mountains, and they're called cloddiau. These walls are called cloddiau. Thank you.